everyone, Pete Frogs here, back for another video. We recently hit 2,000 subscribers on this channel, which I'm super happy about. Thanks for helping me get there. I wanted to make a special video for the occasion, and I asked you to vote on which topics you would enjoy. And the winner of that poll was Sneak Peek into one of the tracks from Sonic and Chill 2. That's right, I have a new album coming out very soon with 10 classic Sonic tracks remixed into Lofi House. The album releases on June 24th, and there will be a link to pre-save or stream and download the album depending on when you're watching this video. So today, I'm going to show you one of the tracks from the album, talk you through the process of how I remixed it into Lofi House. And that track is going to be Stardust Speedway from Sonic CD. So unlike the three main Sonic titles in the Genesis, I didn't get to play Sonic CD when I was a kid because, well, we didn't have a Sega CD at home. But when I found out about this game years later, I was just blown away by the OST. It's just so groovy and funky, and they have so many great samples in there. Like, the whole thing just sounds incredibly fun. Definitely some of the best 90s music there is. And if you've been watching some of my other videos on this channel, then you probably know that I totally have a thing for 90s music. Also, that system of having different variations on each level's music based on whether you're in the future, present, or past, that made for a ton of variety. Some of my favorite tracks from the OST include the present versions of Collision Chaos and Tidal Tempest, and then obviously Stardust Speedway, which I decided on for this remix. But honestly, the whole OST is just incredible, and I very well might revisit it at some point. Going into remixing Stardust Speedway, and when I say that, by the way, I mean the present version, I knew from the start that there were a few things that I wanted to do. First, I definitely wanted to keep the main melodies, the ones that are played by the horns and the piano in the original, but have them play on different instruments. Then I wanted to change the chord progression. The chord progression in the original is a 1 to 4 vamp. That's a funk classic, it works extremely well for that track. But for my remix, I just wanted to do something that sounded a bit more nostalgic and moody. I also wanted to slow the track down and make it more laid back, while still keeping the sense of groove of the original. And finally, I decided not to use any of the samples used in the original. And that's both for copyright reasons. Actually, the Sonic CD OST uses a fair bit of uncleared samples, and also as a creative limitation for myself. Alright, let's get into Ableton so I can show you the track. Okay, so before we get into the details, let's just take a listen to the first build up into the first drop. Alright, so I was telling you that one of the things I wanted was keep those melodies, have them playing on other instruments. So for example, I have the main melody from the track here. So normally being played by the horns. Here it's an organ. Pretty sure, yeah, this is a preset from Diva. I use this synth on a ton of projects. I just love it. Been using it ever since I've been making electronic music. It's just great. And then using some echo on it, this cassette emulation plugin to make it just a little bit dirtier, a little bit more lo-fi, some reverb, some EQ, so that, you know, it doesn't take too much space in the mix. Then let's look at the chords. So I was telling you that I wanted to change those for this remix. let's look into the MIDI. So as I said, the original is just it's a 1 to 4 chord vamp. It goes back between 1 and 4. And this is great, but yeah, I just wanted something a little bit different. So we have A minor 7, the 1, then we have E minor 7, the 5. Then we have this D minor 9, so the 4, and then we have this G dominant 9, so that would be the 7. Yeah, I'm not going to get into all of the music theory stuff. If you're interested, post a comment below, and I can talk a little bit more, maybe about harmony and chords and stuff. So yeah, 1, 5, 4, 7. So that just repeats throughout the whole track. But the second time it plays, I'm just adding these top notes right here just to make it a little bit more interesting and melodic. Then let's look at the bass next. So the bass, it's really in the same spirit as the one from the original. The original also has the same kind of rhythm, like eighth note rhythm, and with like these really short staccato notes. And it also has this stepwise motion, you know, going up and down. So I just wanted to keep the same vibe with, you know, a few little turns and a few little extra syncopated notes in there just to make it interesting and groovy. And yeah, basically it just follows the chords that I just showed you previously. That's also preset from Diva with a fair bit, yeah, I mean, just a little bit, with just a little bit of saturation on it. Okay, next up, let's look at the drums. All right, first, it's house, so we gotta have a big, beefy kick like this. I just like to throw a bunch of kick samples in a drum rack and then audition a few different kicks, see which one I like best. I'm using this plugin to filter it out during the breaks. I also have this compressor right here, this waves compressor. I'm only using the mix at like 20-25%, so it's just like giving it a little bit more attack and making it punch through the mix a little bit more. Okay, and then let me just solo the tops. So basically everything except the kick. So we have quite a few hats going on. First we have actually two samples layered on top of one another to create this like offbeat hat, like the classic house offbeat hi-hat. And then on top of that, let me actually add those in. I have these like extra hats. They're, you know, panned a little bit more to the sides. And yeah, they're just, you know, there to add a little bit more excitement and activity to that drum groove. Next up, the clap, of course. So yeah, nice classic house clap. Interesting thing to know here in terms of the processing. I'm using this Bit Crusher plugin, really cool plugin, by the way. Really useful for anything lo-fi, allows you to downsample your sounds and make them sound like they're coming from like old samplers and stuff like that. So yeah, here it's just like kind of darkening the sound quite a lot. If I play it without, yeah, it's like pretty ear piercing actually if I turn it back on. Yeah, nice and filtered and downsampled, perfect for lo-fi. We also got, of course, some transition effects and drum fills at the end of like every 8 bars. So we have this drum, this snare drum fill right here. Yeah, I just love drum fills like that. I have so in that next section I have a slightly different one. Basically like the extended version of that drum fill. Yeah, I just love these like little snare fills at the end of like every 8-bar group. I used that a lot on the other tracks from Sonic and Chill 2. If you listen to the album, you'll see what I mean. All right, so some other transition effects right here. So we've got those scratch sounds. So here I just use a sample. Sometimes I like to make my own scratch sounds. Here it just worked using that scratch samples. Then using that, come on, come on. It's awesome. Like this one is actually from Sonic 3. I thought that was really cool using that sample for a Sonic CD remix. Then there's this flexitone hit right here. If I play it without the processing, I mean, it's a really cool sound. But when I add the bit crusher on it, makes it like super crunchy and crazy. I love it like that. So in terms of the structure, we have a little bit of an intro. Actually, the intro is right here. So we start with that first melody from the original that I'm also playing on a synth. And then at this point right here, so I'm using a ton of synths, and also I messed around with some vocal samples, as you can see here. Yeah. To recreate that, that famous vocal sample that they used in the original, and that, everybody keeps mentioning that sample in the YouTube comments. I think it's super funny. And then we go into the first, build with, the main melody being introduced into the drop. Then we keep going with that same groove, but adding a few drum layers. And then we go into the second melody, the one that's originally played on a piano. And so here I'm also using some synths to play that melody, both of them coming from Diva, as you can see right here. So just some like nice sparkly 80s sounding synths. And then I'm using the organ sounds for the like response melody that's happening in this section. And that's originally handled by the brass in the original track. Yeah, I mean the composition on these two melodies and the call and response was just perfect, so I just left it like this. No reason to change it. Then we go into a break, still with that main melody. We have a bit of a vocal sample here. So I'm pretty sure this one is coming from, one of those sampled CDs that they made in the 90s. As you can see, I'm also using quite a bit of Bit Crusher on it. Yeah, it's like super bit crushed. Yeah. Yeah. Lots and lots of bit crushing and downsampling and all that stuff. Then we go into another drop. So this time, just the groove, just the chords and the bass with no melody. Then we go into the main melody, but this time it's being played by a different synth. Right. So yeah, just a really funky synth sound using Diva as well. I'm automating the filter cutoff and the resonance to make it more varied. And as you can hear, I also did some small variations on the melody just to make it a bit more interesting, make it sound a little bit like a little bit of a synth solo. I actually do the same thing at the start of the track with that first melody right here. And then here I'm going to play it again, but just basically using the same scale. Like all of the melodies in this track are using the A minor blues scale. And yeah, I just kind of like messed around with my MIDI keyboard, improvising some small phrases until I found something that I liked. And that's how it happened. Then we go back to the organ. So we have the organ playing the main melody again, but we have that funky synth just doing these little like call and response things. Kind of like sounds like it's talking with the main organ melody. Then we go into a climax with the second melody. So just adding a bunch of drum layers, some open hats, some shakers to make sure that that moment in the track is going to hit the hardest, even though, you know, all things considered, it is a very chill house track, so it doesn't hit that hard, to be clear. And then right before the outro, we hit one last drop where, you know, things are just going to quiet down little by little. So I'm using this Serum preset right here. Basically like a fake guitar, like a guitar synth. But I really love this preset. I used it pretty much all over the album. And it's like really quiet, but I'm using another synth to layer it with. And as you can hear, it's actually playing. So if I open the MIDI up for both of these, you can see it's playing a third up. And yeah, you know, just make it a little bit more interesting. If I play it without. Yeah, it doesn't sound as interesting as this. Really subtle, but yeah, it's really small details like this that can make or break a track very often. All right, and that's how I made my remix of Star Speedway from Sonic and Chill 2. If you liked the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to help me get the favors of the YouTube algorithm. And I'll see you in the next one.